I've never sharpened a saw before in my life. And honestly, I don't know what I'm looking at here. I've done a lot of research. I've watched Wood by Wright. I've watched Paul Sellers. I've watched um, uh, Rex Kruger on how to restore these, and I've got a couple of them here, and I've got a few over there as well. Um, but we're gonna do it for the first time ever together today. We're gonna kind of see how badly I can mess this up. These pits don't look bad actually. Hang on a second. I think there is some etching in there. You can kind of see it. That'll be interesting to see what that is. But we got these, and we'll I forgot what this is called, but we can research that to find out what kind of saw this is. But this is going to be our primary saw that we restore. I'm going to be working on the other ones as well, probably in the background, but I think we're going to focus in on this one. We're going to clear the rust out of it, refinish the handle, get some of these things all shined up, looking nice. We'll see if we can't keep that etch. We may have a bit of a problem with that because this is pretty gross. I just got this at a flea market. I think it was $5, just sitting there. But yeah, we'll get it sharpened up and set up. What I'm hoping for is to get away from some of those universal stores that you can get at the home centers and get into these saws that I can treat and care for and sharpen and all that stuff myself. So yeah, let's go ahead and get to it. Okay, so I got the saw over here on my workbench, and what we're wanting to do is kind of, at least from my understanding, again, this is my first time doing it. I'm just kind of looking over everything. So I am definitely a anxious and classic overthinker. I've been thinking about this video for good night, probably 4 days now, trying to figure out how I want to do it. And now that I'm doing it, I'm procrastinating right now and keeping myself from actually doing it by studying the saw for the 1500th time. First thing I'm going to do is go ahead and pull these screws out. Let's go ahead and get this set up a little bit better. We're going to get these screws out. So the audio from here on out is a little spotty, so I went ahead and did a recording anyways. What I'm doing here is removing the screws. Just a standard Phillips head screwdriver you can get out of any toolbox. And yeah, I'm using a drill bit to pop out the individual bolts or individual fasteners on the other side. I didn't have anything else small enough to really fit in there, and that drill bit's something that I've had laying around for quite a while. But as you can see, I was able to get this all pulled apart just fine. So I ended up using the side of my chisel on more than one occasions, and really that's because I didn't have the appropriate sandpaper. The side of the chisel was able to remove quite a bit of material, but really it'd be better if you had 60 grit or something sandpaper to really chew through that. And mostly the reason being is the chisel is an incredibly sharp tool and something that you shouldn't just use for purposes not necessarily it is intended for. So at this point, I had some 80 grit sandpaper. I went ahead and cleaned up the rest of the handle. I wasn't sure whether or not I wanted to get into the individual spaces, especially where that yellow flowering was and where the lettering was as well. I don't know. I kind of wanted to see what it would look like if I kept that. So I went ahead and just left it there. Finally, I just applied a single layer of boiled linseed oil to the handle. It really brought out some beautiful colors on it. Um, Again, the yellow is still there, but I don't know if that's something that I'm necessarily worried about at this time. The first time going over the saw, all I did was use mineral spirits and steel wool. Now, I was able to get a lot of the big, nasty rust pieces off, but as you can tell, there's a lot of patina still there, and a lot of, honestly, just oxidation and things like that still there, or at least that's what I think it is. Um, the saw is just still dirty. When I get to this point in the reconstruction and whatnot, I went ahead and put some paste on it, or some wax on it, just to make sure that there wasn't any further damage if it sat in my shop for a while. But I wasn't thrilled with the way it came out, and you can really see when the blade's all when we're going over and just reviewing the blade. I just didn't like the way it looked. So I went ahead or I decided to go ahead and go back after it with sandpaper. After doing a little bit more research, sandpaper was one of the recommended methods. Now with the bolts, they were looking pretty grimy on top, but honestly, I used a little bit of leftover mineral spirits from when I was cleaning the saw the first time, and I did a circular motion with my wrist and my hand on just 200 grit sandpaper, and that really cleared it up quite a bit. Now I experimented a bit with the steel wool, and I experimented a bit with the heavier sandpaper and whatnot, but that 200 grit sandpaper worked really, really well in cleaning up those bolts. Now, when I got to the medallion, I went ahead and just used some steel wool because I really didn't want to run the risk of scratching any of that stuff up. I really wanted that medallion to be looking good, even if it did mean it was a little bit grimier than the others. But I think even with the steel wool, it came out really well. So it was around here that I thought I was done. So I went ahead and put the saw back together. And again, it was not complete, but it did end up giving me ideas on how to proceed after I put the saw back together. And as you see, I put some mineral spirits on, and I just go to town with it with the sandpaper. You really want to be careful with the saw teeth and whatnot because that'll tear up the sandpaper quite a bit. So I usually used a lot coarser sandpaper right around the teeth, like we're talking a 16th or an eighth of an inch, right around the teeth to make sure that I only had to pass through those maybe once. But and I used 200 grit sandpaper on the majority of the saw. Now, I did end up using 320 around the actual etching, and really that was just so I didn't tear up that etching any more than I absolutely had to. But I wanted to get as much rust off as I could as well. But yeah, that's all this is just 200 grit sandpaper and 200 grit sandpaper and mineral spirits, and I was very happy with the results after this was done. The saw looked really nice, and once it was all put back together, I felt very happy with the work that was completed. And again, this is my first time ever having uh, cleaned and restored a saw. Now, in our next video, we're going to go over sharpening, and we're also going to be cleaning other tools in the shop that I picked up from the flea market and estate sales and things like that. But really, I was impressed with the methods that I had learned, and impressed with the teachers that I had learned from on YouTube, and just the results came back pretty clear. Before I forget, please like and subscribe. There's going to be an end card as well in the video, so you guys have an opportunity to like and subscribe there. We also, I plan on doing more of these videos of basically just showing. Listen, I've never done it before either, and I'm going to go off lessons and whatnot that I learned from other woodworkers online. I don't have any instructors here in town that I'm aware of that do traditional woodworking. So we're all just kind of learning online and seeing what happens.